anybody who's been through the medical cannabis process here in Canada knows that it could be better, let's say. And so next up, we're going to focus on how technology can ease the pain of the patient journey. On our panel, we have Jessica Moran from Strainprint, Megan Henderson from HelloMD, Sarah Seal from Pineapple Express Delivery, and moderating the panel is Daniel Sachs from Sensi Properties. Please come up and clap. Yay!
Hello? There we go. Hey, I'm Daniel Sachs. I'm the founder and CEO of Sensi Properties. Just wanted to thank you guys for coming out to this. First of all, just want to say congratulations to Jay and the Business of Cannabis team. I think this is just an amazing venue, amazing event. Really proud to watch him come all this way from his first event several years ago. Feels like an eternity. So I guess I'm the token male on this panel, as we call it, the FAManel. And we've got some amazing minds in the cannabis space. So at the far end, we've got Jess Moran from Strainprint, Sarah Seal from Pineapple Express, and Megan Henderson from HelloMD, who represent some amazing technology companies that are all touching the patient experience. And so we're just going to delve into a chat around the patient experience in cannabis. So firstly, before getting too deep, what are you seeing right now? What is the patient experience like in Canada? And what are some of the challenges that are driven by that? What are you seeing? And as you talk, give a 30-second intro on yourself and what your company does.
Sure, so I'll start. As Dan said, I'm Megan Henderson. I'm with HelloMD. And so we are a virtual platform that we white label for LPs, clinics, healthcare providers to facilitate medical documents for patients in Canada. And so from our perspective, I mean, I think things have come a long way from where they were in the beginning when patients were first trying to get access to medical cannabis. You know, it was even more challenging than it is now, if that's even possible to understand what that was like. And half the time, most physicians or most clinics could only work on a referral basis. So, you know, luckily things have, with the legalization and you know, the evolution over the last few years, I think, you know, access has gotten certainly better than it was, but there's a long way to go in terms of making sure that patients have access to medical cannabis, have access to experienced healthcare practitioners who can answer their questions and provide education, and folks who aren't going to judge them for the choice of using medical cannabis. I think that's a big thing. There's a lot of stigma, and there's a lot of challenges still with talking to your general practitioners. I mean, chime in on your end, guys, but I feel like as much as we've come a long way, there's still a lot of challenges around access and being able to talk openly about using medical cannabis as a treatment.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm Sarah Seal. I'm the interim GM over at Pineapple Express Delivery. So Pineapple Express, we're a same-day delivery service for the cannabis market, and we started with patients, right? That's where our entire journey started. Our CEO is a medical patient, a lot of our staff are medical patients, and one of the biggest problems that we saw, and this is still, we're a year and a half in from where we started, and we're still seeing this problem, is that patients are, you've taken a product, you're calling it a medicine, and you're not treating it like a medicine. It has a tax on it. It should not be taxed. Accessibility is a very big problem. And for us, where we started, a patient was not able to get their medication. And you have people with very serious conditions right now who are using medical cannabis specifically for that purpose. And they weren't able to get their medication. They don't have the option of going down to a pharmacy and picking up their medication, or calling their doctor and saying, hey doc, I'm out. They had to sit at home, they had to order online, they had to go through an onerous process, and then they had to wait maybe 3 to 5 days, if they were lucky, to be able to have that delivered to their door. And a lot has not changed. Companies like ours, through technology platforms, we're trying to help solve that problem, but there's still a very long way to go.
And maybe just quickly, like I think that's part of the challenge is there is the limitations to what we can do with technology. We still exist within this regulatory context, and there's a lot of different bodies involved, including like associations of doctors and everything like that, and a lot of challenges that necessarily technology can't overcome in and of itself.
I'm Jessica Moran, and I head up the marketing and communications at Strainprint Technologies. First and foremost, we're by patients for patients, and we offer a free medical cannabis app. And we've quickly grown into the leading source of medical cannabis data in North America. My colleague Michelle was up here earlier showcasing our research report that we excitingly just came out with a bunch of our findings. Proud to say we have over 1.3 million tracked medical cannabis patient outcomes in that report, so pretty cool. I would echo Sarah and Megan's sentiments and really back it up and say that there's still a large amount of stigma revolving around getting a cannabis prescription and even just approaching it. So we had a pretty hearty discussion outside, and I often relay it back to my own personal experience, but I have a daughter who's on the autism spectrum, and we go to the doctor and she's treated for a myriad of mental health issues, and when you bring up medical cannabis, it's very taboo. So for us, I'd like to see a day where you go into the doctor and they offer you Zoloft, Cipralax, or medical cannabis. So it currently isn't part of most doctors' toolkit, and I really think it should be, and I'll be proud of the day that we're able to achieve that, particularly in Canada.
So help us break down that stigma a little bit, and what role, how does it work right now? What are the kind of challenges or limitations to the way that cannabis is prescribed or approached by pharmacists, and what role can technology play in helping to bridge that gap to reduce the stigma or address concerns with taking other drugs, et cetera?
I mean, I think from our perspective at HelloMD, like one of the biggest challenges, is, when you look at somebody like the Canadian Medical Association, they've been very adamant and against cannabis and the medical cannabis regime, and that makes it really challenging for then physicians to embrace it. And it also makes it challenging because then there's not a focus on educating those physicians so that they can provide that care to their patients. So for us, we look at our technology providing that sort of bridge between the patient and the medical document and the LP, right? So we are using our practitioners to provide that assessment. We're allowing people to do it in the comfort of their own home through a video virtual consult, so they don't have to, if there's mobility challenges with a lot of these patients, they could have mobility issues, they could have severe pain issues, and so for them to be able to do this at home is a lot easier, it's a lot more comfortable, and it's private, which is really important for all of us when we're in a patient scenario, right? We don't want to have somebody listening to our conversation with our doctor. So we feel like that technology helps a lot of patients facilitate their medical document in a way that is very dignified and allows them to feel comfortable and really share their challenges with us.
What are the biggest pain points you're seeing, like on the patient side, and what technology solutions are you seeing or are you providing to help fill that from a patient's experience perspective? Maybe Jess, you can start.
Yeah, so I think a couple things. Going back to where the patient is, I think there's still a large amount of confusion, which companies like HelloMD and many others are helping with, is if there is an interest in getting a cannabis prescription, and given many doctors aren't comfortable in prescribing yet, where can people go to get a prescription? So that's the first thing. The second thing, and where we come in, is cannabis, even medically, is such a personal experience. So what might work for me if I'm having the same symptom may not work for Sarah or Megan. There's so many things at play. So technology, shameless plugs, such as our app and other things are out there, we're getting to a point where we can hone in on what has the best efficacy, what strain and ingestion methods work best for what symptoms in the medical realm, which is super exciting. With more of that data and research, we'll be able to push the barometer forward. And I think with that legitimacy, break the stigma. So my opinion, with the don't tax medicine, we need to take it a step further. We need to have a DIN number. How do we do that? Research, case studies, and data. And that's the only trifecta that will work when dealing with government, and to be able to inflict not only don't tax medicine, but a DIN number.
Yeah, absolutely. And then it goes to the whole point of accessibility and what you were saying earlier, that technology can't solve all of the different problems. So our company, for example, we've solved the problem of same-day delivery, but we can only deliver from an LP to their medical patient. And the reality is the LPs are very far. They're very far. So Canopy is out in Smith Falls. Logistically, it's not possible for us to provide a same-day delivery service from Smith Falls to downtown Toronto. So that means that those patients don't get that capability just because of the regulations. So technology can only go so far. The regulations do need to change. And I mean, accessibility is just a very big issue overall.
And I think the other thing is, and we all three of us, I think, agree on this, education, and I think if you've been to any of these conferences before, this is like a running thread. Education is a huge part of this. If we cannot, right now I think it's something like 75% or 80% of the Canadian population isn't using cannabis, right? Right now we only have self-reported like 20% in certain provinces, right? So if that 80% has never used cannabis, or perhaps they haven't used it in a long time, a lot has changed in the last, even just decade, even in just the last few years. So, we need to prepare those people for this treatment. It is not like getting a bottle of Advil, right? So you need to understand, how is this going to work with my body? How is it going to work with my symptoms? And I think Ken was talking about it from shoppers. Like, there's still a lot of rigor that has to be involved in this, and part of that is education. And technology can help with that, but it also comes down to us in the industry as well, being prepared to share our own experiences, talking about cannabis on a regular basis, because the more we talk about it, the more we put it out there, the more comfortable people are going to be with it, right? And so part of that is us leading by example and not being afraid to say, I use cannabis. Whether it's for medical or recreational purposes, there is no reason that we should feel like we need to hide in the closet about that. We have to break the stigma by being present for it and
I guess it's important because to note that people do use it recreationally, and I think that's maybe, as we're staying outside, that's maybe not enough of the conversation. So you go to your doctor and your doctor prescribes you something and says, hey, don't take it with alcohol, right? And you're like, okay, I won't have these 4 drinks, I won't drink this bottle of wine with it. That's a good idea, but they're not talking about cannabis, and there are potential conflicts that could come up. Could you guys talk about that a little?
Yeah, well, we were talking about this outside, that when Ken from Shoppers was on stage, one of his panels were talking about different drug interactions, and the antibiotic that I'm currently on for bronchitis popped up on the screen as one of the potential drug interactions for cannabis. And I specifically asked the pharmacist, were there any interactions? Because there are different things that I take. I take a lot of natural health supplements. He never mentioned anything. He was there, he looked in his system, he came back, and he was like, oh no, you're fine. Basically, there are no real interactions with this. Well, today I found out that there were, so thank goodness this week I did have bronchitis, I didn't take anything, but potentially I could have had a severe interaction this week just because my pharmacist didn't know any better, and his technology wasn't advanced enough to give him the interaction.
So it's not really just medical cannabis patients, it's patients who also use, medical patients who also use cannabis that's an issue. And so where in the existing system do you see a role for technology to play? Like, does there need to be something at the prescription level, like at a doctor's office level, to tell them what possible conflicts there would be with different types of cannabis? Like, you need to stay away from sativas with myrcene with this prescription I'm giving you. Like, where do you see that kind of filling in over the next 5-10 years?
Well, I mean, I think even if it's something as basic as you have certain drugs that you are not supposed to take with alcohol, it can be as basic a start as that. Don't take this with alcohol, don't take this with cannabis. It might be as simple as that, and then you can investigate further. You can go and do research, and you can find out if your specific type is.
And I think it goes back to what Jess was saying, like, the clinical research is really going to be what helps inform this conversation. And from the discussions I've had with healthcare practitioners and sort of the existing evidence, the reported cases of interactions and stuff like that, it's because of where it's metabolizing and things like that, there is, it's mostly CBD that's causing those interactions. Obviously THC can as well, but in the case of CBD, what I've heard from healthcare practitioners is that it's acting very much like grapefruit. So a lot of times people have gotten a medication and it says on it, don't take with grapefruit, right? So very similar because of the way it metabolizes in your system. CBD can have that same type of interaction, but there's not enough case evidence or reports of this, so they're hesitant to say, yes, for sure, this drug or that drug. So right now there's like a blanket list that I'm aware of that might cause an interactive, but they're not sure yet. So again,
I should just be steering clear of grapefruit altogether is what you're telling me, just to be safe. We exist in this system where, the framework we have is this highly regulatory Canadian framework, and it's what allows Canada to be a leader in the industry. And then we've also got this overlay of our different levels of medical framework and regulatory. That framework, how does that allow patient-focused companies to flourish in Canada? Especially companies that are looking at and operating in the States and other jurisdictions, what are we doing right here? How does that give us a competitive advantage? And what from that do you think we can export and teach others around the world as countries roll out medical cannabis programs?
So for us, we can see it just even through this research report that we just put out. Because we're so heavily regulated here, that's why we've been able to do that. If you look at the States, it's so disjointed there. California is the Wild West. They have it by state. It's clearly not federally regulated. So what we can do is we have a really nice case study in Canada because it's so heavily regulated, particularly the medicinal program that we can work with. And we can share that data and research as a baseline to other countries. Both the US and European countries, really worldwide, which I think is super exciting. So I think Canada really does still have the opportunity to be a leader in that because it is a regulated market and we have this very unique set of data and hopefully research and more research that we're able to bring to the rest of the world.
So this is in many ways the right place to have a patient-focused cannabis company.
Oh, absolutely. And I do a lot of work in the Caribbean as well. And one of the things that we've done, we did a conference down there. We took a lot of experts from Canada down. And one of the overlying things that we were saying is, look at all the things that we've done right in Canada and look at all the things that we've done wrong. And it was a very, very open and transparent. Don't do things the way that we did it. Have a patient-centric focus. So I think that goes a long way as well, where when countries are honest about the mistakes that they've made, it will help, and that will establish Canada as a leader. If we stand up and we say, this is what we did right, this is what we did wrong, you guys should learn from us, grow from us, do better.
Yeah, and I think too, the regulations are going to shift and change as we go on. I think, if we look at the challenges around vaping in the US right now, I think as Canadians in the cannabis industry, we should be feeling very proud of the fact that we do have such a regulated space so that we can feel more confident about, if and when vapes are on the market, we can feel more confident about what we're putting out the door because we have such a regulated market, And I think that's a big factor in providing safety to patients.
Not on the agenda, but do you think Health Canada will delay the rollout of vapes in Canada as a result of what's going on in the States? Will we see oil vapes maybe delayed for a period?
Well, I think it's important to note that it is oil vapes that we're talking about because you can get dry flowered vapes still. Correct. And so vaping will still be an option for Canadians who want to take their medicine that way. It just won't be as perhaps convenient as an oil vape. I can't say, who knows what's in the mind of Health Canada.
What do you think? Not what's, do you think it's...
I'm going to pass that to these ladies to answer.
I hope not, honestly, I hope not. I think I'll give him a shout out, Brian Coots from A&L. I was looking down at his phone. He made a really good statement on one of the panels earlier that it really comes down to testing, and you have to test product from seed all the way through. So if you're taking a good quality product and you're putting it into a bad carrier system, like a vape, for example, maybe that's the issue. Maybe there's a heavy metal issue actually within the vape cartridge itself. It has nothing to do with the product. So as long as the testing and the regulations allow for a final finished product to be tested all the way through, I don't see why they should hold it back.
And I would just chime in and say that going back to what we talked about before, a lot of education needs to happen. I know for us, we really felt a lot of our patients, there was a little bit of pushback and just, potential and kind of that Canna Curious audience really dumping all vaporizing into one bucket and one category. So there's been a number of really great articles that have done a deep dive on it that have come out, which are really informative. And we need more of that education and stories where, vaping flower is not the same as juuling. So there needs to be that delineation, and we need to continue to educate, particularly the Canna Curious and general public, to let them know the differences.
What frustrations do you have maybe on the LP side and that part of the industry in Canada that they don't get with the implementation of technology on the patient side, where you're frustrated with them kind of like missing the benefits of it, and where can they improve and simplify their businesses by implementing technology solutions to have a better patient outcome or better patient experience?
I would say, sorry to chime in again, but I would just say, there's we're working with a number of companies we sort of call it loosely Project Transparency, but we need to be sharing and be transparent with one another. So one of the challenges that we see, particularly on the producer side, is a lack of willingness to necessarily share data. So our data is very open, it's crowdsourced, and that's where we feel the future will go, where we should all be looking at everything, and then as an industry, we will all get better, both in our own businesses and as an entire industry, and that will propel and continue to propel Canada as the leader.
And I think too, it's about, I know there's been a big push to be vertically integrated, but you can't be good at all things. So find partners who are really good at a piece of the chain and let them help you deliver, right?
Amazing. I see that we've run out of time, so I'm just going to open this up to one or two questions, which I'm being told not to do. So I will take a question from Jay. Now, any questions for the audience? None. Nobody.
There you go. Problem solved, Jay. It's all good.
Well, thank
Nobody
you
wants to
very
talk.
much to this lovely panel. You guys did an amazing job.